Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's Ask a Trainer. Today I thought we've gotten lots of questions about cats. So I thought it was time to give the kitties some love and talk about them. We've done lots of conversations about dogs so far. So, easily the most common question I get about cats behaviorally, kind of the one of the most common reasons for them being surrendered to shelters is litter box issues, problems with them eliminating outside the box, or other places that are not so desirable. So that is a really common and a really frustrating problem to deal with. So I thought that would be a good place to start. So that's what we're going to talk about today in sort of three steps of the order that I advise trying to address it. So step one, if your cat is having any kind of litter box issues, they're having accidents, they're going outside the box, anywhere else but their box, always the very first thing to do is you want to rule out an underlying medical reason or cause. So step one is pretty much always to go to the vet, get a urinalysis, kind of do a regular checkup before looking for behavioral causes, because of course if there's a medical reason, then none of your behavioral interventions are going to work, and that's frustrating for everybody. It's pretty common for cats to have just a simple medical problem like a urinary tract infection, things like crystals in their urine. It's a very relatively common health problem that cats run into. So it's definitely not unheard of that something could be hurting them when they go to the bathroom. A common problem that happens is essentially when your cat goes in their box, they go to the bathroom, and if there's something medical that's causing them pain, they can learn to associate, like, oh, I went in my litter box and it didn't feel good, something hurt. So sometimes even after the resolution of that pain, they can develop a litter box aversion, and I'll talk about what to do if that happens, if it persists. But that's another reason why you definitely want to intervene medically and not miss something, because it can create further problems the longer it goes on. And then of course we want our cats to be healthy and not in any type of pain. So obviously that's another reason to kind of get them medically checked out. You'd be surprised how often I've experienced at previous places I've worked, animal cats being surrendered to a shelter for litter box issues. Turned out they had a urinary tract infection, treated it, the issues went away. So again, it's like you don't want to spend tons of effort trying to troubleshoot all these behavior problems when it might just be something that's fixable or medical. So I always start there by saying, step one, see that even if you think they're fine or it's been going on a long time, as long as that issue medically is not resolved, there's going to kind of keep being issues. So I always check on that first. Now moving more into my expertise, let's say you've gone to the vet, they are fine, they are healthy, no obvious medical cause. So let's move on to kind of the next steps from there. Step two, the thing to evaluate, is to troubleshoot the box itself. It's very frequently a solvable issue with specifically your litter box, and there's a lot of things that you can change that can make your cat more successful. So I'm going to go through sort of all of the factors to consider, common trouble areas, and things that you can sort of try or change and see if that works. So the first thing that's I think really frequently underestimated, and so kind of a very common problem, is how many litter boxes to have. So kind of the easiest first thing to do that you can always start with is to add additional boxes. A good rule of thumb is to have at least one for each cat plus one. So meaning if you have one cat, you should have at least two litter boxes. If you have two cats, you should have at least three litter boxes, etc. You also, if you have a really big house, you probably want to have at least one per floor of the house. I'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about litter box location, but sometimes that can be an issue. Like if your cat is on one floor and for some reason they don't want to go up or down a set of stairs and find a litter box, that can be a problem. So like let's say you only have one cat, you have two boxes, but they're both on the same floor. I would definitely either just move one or add an additional one on another floor of the house, assuming that's a floor that your cat goes to. And then, so yeah, that's sort of your bare minimum. You want to have at least one per cat plus one per each floor. Those are your minimum starting points. You can't really have too many in terms of helping the cat be successful. I guess you could have you probably could have too many, but in terms of your cat's preference and helping get litter box success, you really cannot. So that's the bare minimum, and I advise increasing from there your number if you have either a senior cat. They are a little more likely to have litter box issues, both because they're sometimes more prone to discomforts and medical issues, which we already addressed. So, but also they're going to be more likely to things like not want to move up the stairs, not want to go a long way. Maybe they're tired, not feeling well. So if you're have a little not quite as good bladder control, things like that. So if you have a very senior cat or a really young kitten, similar thing, their bladder control is not as good as it will get as they get older and get better muscle control. So start with at least one per cat plus one. And if you have a senior cat or a kitten, kind of you want to think of it as kind of increasing from there, at least your bare minimum. So that's number. Another reason why number can matter is because if you add more, it's not just the availability of more, but often if there's a problem with one, which we're going to go over again, all of these sort of common issues they might be having, a reason why they might not like a particular box. When you add more, you're kind of increasing your chances of missing that problem with the next one. So like, let's say they just don't like where your litter box is in the house. If you add another one and they like that location, that sort of solves it. Similarly, if they are very sensitive about the cleanliness of your box, then having a higher number is going to keep each one cleaner or give them an alternative. So if they go in one and they're like, not loving the smell in here, they can go to a different one. So again, increasing your number seems really simple, but it's a really easy first step where you don't have to do a ton of data gathering. It doesn't take training. Just put more around the house and you might find that's a pretty easy intervention that can make a big difference. And then let's go into the next thing. So the next thing to think about is the location. Where is your litter box, or where are your litter boxes? There's several things about the location that might be turning your cat off to it. And it can also be something that comes and goes, which leads to the cat sometimes using the box and other times not, which can confuse people. So the most common one for that is something about access. Is there think through anything that would block your cat's access? And it's not always, a big thing in the way or a closed door that we would necessarily obviously think of. Could be something like if you have a multi-cat household and cats can be a little bit territorial. If your cat has to pass another cat, maybe they have to pass another cat eating, something like that to get to their box, that can make them not want to make that journey. And similarly, oftentimes they don't want to go past a dog. That's going to depend, of course, a lot on your individual household. Maybe your cat and dog are best friends. But it's definitely something to consider. Like if there's anything that your cat is afraid of, and it's something like a dog that moves around, there could be times when your cat doesn't want to go past them to get to their box, and that could result in these sort of intermittent accidents where sometimes they're using it, sometimes they're not, and that can be confusing for people. So if they sometimes use their box and other times don't, definitely think about access. And as I already stated, stairs can be another one. It could be when they need to go, but they're upstairs, they're just not going to go that far. Maybe if it's an older cat and they have arthritis and they don't want to use the stairs, maybe they're just, it's too far and they get a little confused and they have to go right now. So access is definitely something to think about. They also don't really like to go very near where they eat. who can blame them? Who would want those things to be close together? So a lot of times people will just kind of set up, I think it's just a natural person thing to do, like, oh, here's the cat stuff, here's their food, here's their water, here's their litter box. But for cats, they're really gonna, I mean, I think for people too, you want your kitchen and your bathroom and your bedroom to be separate places. So if your food is right next to the box, that can be a big turnoff for them as well. So definitely keep that in mind with location. Tiny side note, cats typically also prefer that their food and water be not right next to each other. So something that most humans would pretty much always put it next to each other. But speaking of how they like their spacing, not related to litter boxes per se, but just a fun fact while you're watching. You can try moving their water bowl somewhere else and they might drink more out of it. Okay, so back to litter box location. Another thing that's really common is, and another one of these things that can be intermittent, which can make it harder for people to figure out what's happening, is if there's a noise or something noisy that is near their litter box. So again, even something that we might not think of as noisy, anything that could be frightening or that your cat dislikes, or if it startles them, they're not going to want to go back to that spot, even if the noise isn't happening right then. So two really good examples, I think, are like a washing machine. Tons of people put their litter box in the laundry room and sort of out of the way. It makes sense space-wise for people. But a lot of cats are not going to like the rumbling of the washing machine or the dryer, maybe the opening and closing of that door, or like if some machines will buzz when they finish, and that could scare them while they're in there and make them not want to go back. So even things like I think a dishwasher, it's probably less common that it would be next to that. But think about your appliances. Think about if there's anything that's either loud all the time, or even more troublesome sometimes are things like your washing machine, that it's sometimes running once in a while, and that could be more of a surprise for your cat and make them really dislike it and kind of make them scared to go back in there. So definitely you want to scout out kind of a quiet, private spot that they can easily access. They can get to it. They don't have to go through or past something. I mentioned like passing another dog or cat, but there could also be something like that. Maybe they don't want to, let's say, your washing machine's here, your litter box is here, it's far enough away from it. But if your cat is, the video is backwards, so I'm confusing myself with my hand signals. My point being, if your cat had to walk past something noisy to get to their box, even if the box is in a quiet space, that can be another access issue. So a lot of these things, when you think about it from your cat's perspective, it might be kind of obvious to them, but it wouldn't necessarily be, because you might be thinking, well, the box is in a quiet spot, I have plenty of them, I keep it super clean, and you're not thinking about the path they need to take to get there, which can also, again, I've mentioned how it's just harder for us humans to figure out. Like if they never use the box, it's obvious that there's something wrong. But if they just once in a while have accidents, oftentimes it's stuff like that. It's, they don't want to pass by something that's noisy right then. That's not usually happening. There's a bunch of commotion in your house that day, and they don't want to walk through it to get to their box. So making sure that kind of where they hang out and their quiet, safe space, that's a really good place to have it, where it's away from food, away from hustle and bustle, and they're not going to get trapped across the house where they would have to cross anything they don't want to get to it. I think that's about it in terms of location to think about. The next up, this is a really big one for cats. This is a super common issue, is that a lot of cats they all have varying degrees of preference. They all are going to prefer a cleaner box to a dirty one, obviously. Again, who wouldn't? But some cats can be very particular and finicky about this. So there's a couple sort of easy solutions to this. One, again, just add more boxes, because if you don't want to have to be cleaning more frequently, if you spread, if they're spreading it out, there's more boxes, then they've always got a backup option. And if they, go to the bathroom so many times in a day, if that's spread out between 3 boxes instead of 1 box, then they might still be willing to use another one an extra time without you having to clean it so much, if they are one of those that just is very particular about how clean a box is. Many cats will not use a dirty box. The second thing is we usually think about clean in terms of what we see. So like if you're cleaning a litter box, you're probably noticing how much is in there, if it looks really messy, how much scooping you have to do, but it's probably more important to your cat how it smells. So one common issue, and this is going to bring us to kind of our next subcategory, is if there's not a deep enough amount of litter to absorb the urine and it goes on the bottom, wouldn't necessarily look obviously like a dirty box to us, especially unless you're actively cleaning it, because you wouldn't see the urine on the bottom. It's under this top layer. But that, when it's not absorbed, really smells, especially when your cat walks in and they move their paws or try to dig and they get hit with that smell. They don't want to go there. So that's a cleanliness issue, but a way to solve it isn't necessarily having to clean more, but it might be adjusting the depth, how tall, how much litter you're putting in the box itself can avoid that sort of urine on the bottom smelly problem. So you can increase your number, you can change your litter depth. You can't just keep making it taller and taller and taller and taller and have them keep using a dirty box forever, but it is something to consider. If it's way too thin, that's a really frequent issue. I recommend about 3 or 4 inches depth of your amount of litter in your litter pail, and different cats again are going to have different preferences, but usually less than that they frequently start to have issues. And then your last thing that you can do, other than increasing your number or changing something about the box itself to make it feel cleaner to them, is just cleaning it more often. So sometimes they won't use, a box that they think is dirty, so you might just want to change your schedule and clean it more often. If you were doing every other day, try doing every day. See if that works. See if that makes a difference. And it's usually not too hard to notice if there's a pattern. So usually this is a relatively easy issue to identify if you're trying to figure out why they're not using the box. If every time they have an accident you go to clean it and it's a certain amount of dirty, that might be a good signal to you that that's what it is that they're upset about. So cleanliness is a big one for cats. And again, keep in mind, it's often the smell as much as the actual amount. So if you're not thoroughly getting the urine out, if there's urine stuck to the box itself that's not getting absorbed, anything that's kind of lingering that way, even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm scooping all the time, that it doesn't smell clean to the cat, that's going to turn them off from using it. Okay, that's number, location, cleanliness. Here is probably kind of the most complicated one with the most variety, and that is type. Once again, cats can be very particular. They all have different preferences, so it's not one size fits all. Unfortunately, it would be a lot easier if I could say this exact type, color and size of litter box is every cat's favorite and they'll all use it no problem. Unfortunately, some like more litter, some like slightly less, some like clumping, some don't. So you're gonna have to experiment a little bit. But I'm going to talk you through again kind of the most common things that cats in general don't like, or that you can sort of factors that you can change to experiment and figure out what your cat's preference is and make sure you're offering them the thing they actually like. So probably the most common type of litter box that humans often like but cats don't is a covered litter box. Oftentimes they can feel confined in there. Again, this is even more, although not exclusively, it's even more common of an issue in a multi-cat household because your cat can feel like they can't escape. If they go in and there's only one exit, let's say another cat comes in to bother them, or there's any sort of multi-cat tensions there, they can feel trapped in it. So they don't want to go somewhere where they feel stuck. They might also just sort of feel enclosed. It might be a little too small for them to turn around. So if you have a covered litter box and you're having litter box issues, easiest thing to do is swap it. Either add an uncovered one, see if they use that one really preferentially, and then that kind of lets you know. Or you can oftentimes just take the cover off and see if that makes a difference. And I mentioned that sometimes they can feel like trapped or not have the space to turn around. So that's a good segue to think about the size of your box relative to your cat. If the box is too small, that is another really common issue where if it's too small, um, they might not feel comfortable. They might not feel that they have the space to dig and cover after they eliminate, which is a natural cat behavior. They might not feel comfortable fully set up that they can go in, turn around, find a space. So a wider box will actually solve a lot of problems. I really frequently hear about cats who go just over the edge of the box. They're like close, but they're kind of going on the sides, and that is frequently solved by just making it wider, because it might just be the way they're standing in it and they think they're going in the litter, but they're kind of just over. Just expand the size of the box itself, and then it's going to be catching if they go in that same sort of place and amount. This also gets back to the cleanliness issue. So if you have a wider box, it's more likely that they can find a spot that kind of smells and feels okay to them. So definitely a good idea to sorry. um, Definitely a good idea to consider the size of your box. You want it to be about 1.5 times the length of your cat from like their nose to their tail. That's going to give them enough space to go in, turn around, find a spot comfortably. Let's see. Other things to consider. I already talked a little bit about litter depth, but that's definitely something I always experiment with. If it's super, super, super tall, you can try doing less. Usually, more commonly, it's an issue of needing more, though. If you, we already kind of talked about the issues with too thin a layer. But again, cats all have their own preferences, so they might be really particular about, liking a certain amount or certain consistency. So it's always something it's very easy to experiment just from, one day to the next, add a little more, see if that changes things, take out a little bit, and see if you can figure out your cat's preference. But again, about 3 to 4 inches depth is kind of the general go-to. And then last but not least is litter type. There are about 1.5 million different types of litter on the market. This is something where a lot of litters are going to advertise to things that are convenient or seemingly convenient to humans, but not necessarily in line with your cat's preference. So there's kind of 2 things I advise. A couple things to look out for that they commonly dislike, but sort of the simplest thing, since they're all individuals, is just try different kinds. Try all sorts of different kinds. This is, again, where it's really helpful to have a number of litter boxes, because if you have a higher number, you can experiment with some of these things. One is covered, one is not. 2 are the same, but, one has 4 inches, one has 3 inches. Of the litter depth. One uses clay and one uses clumping, one uses a sand. It might become really apparent when you offer them more choices what their preference are. And then certainly if you see like, oh, they always go in this one with the sand litter, unscented, then that's your go-to litter from now on. Put it in all the boxes and your problem is sort of solved. So there's definitely a little bit of experimenting going on, but some common things that are like, again, kind of the first thing that, okay, if it's covered, there's a decent chance they might not like that. Similar with litter type. Most cats like a sort of sand-like soft texture that won't hurt their paws, that they can easily dig in, and they usually prefer unscented. That's one of those things that's sort of like very much advertised to humans. The, odor eliminator is fine, but things that have like a strong perfumey scent on top of, a lot of cats dislike. So that's kind of one of the first things I'll go in and change to see if that helps. If you're sort of looking for what is the most likely thing that my cat will like, instead of just trying 100 types, the first thing I try would be like an unscented, scoopable sand type. That's you're most likely to be popular and not be causing any issues. But just try different kinds, and when you find that's one your cat likes, stick with it. I've found some different kinds that I like, or that I like using, and every cat is going to be a little bit different. So there's always a little bit of a process of trial and error, figuring out their particular preferences. But again, kind of a good rule of thumb is it's like the more choices they have, one, the more obvious to you what pattern and preferences they have. So even if it's not, you don't have to have 35 litter boxes with different heights and types and smells and covered and not covered forever, but you might want to add a couple or change things and pay really close attention to the pattern so that you can notice if you're having more or fewer accidents. That'll be like a good way to kind of let you know what it is that they like. So you can have this period that's not, oh, you have to have 100 different types of litter boxes forever, but it's more about, let me figure out what it is that they prefer. What does my particular cat like? What is happening? Let me notice when and where they're having their accidents, and that'll give me information about how to keep them more successful moving forward. Then once you've discovered it, you don't need 20 different types if you know they like this one. But you can also go the lazy way, never have to figure out what it is they didn't like. Just give them a big variety. You got 10 boxes. They're all in different places, different whatevers. And hopefully you like one of them. That's also a method that's totally fine, where you don't necessarily have to be in there with a scientific notebook figuring out your cat's exact preference. Give them enough options that they can always find a clean one. They can always find one they can get to. And it's like, it's not too hard to just add more and more types, and often that'll kind of cover all your bases, that no matter which of these issues it is, often if you just add one, it'll take away one of those issues or give them another option. So that's kind of the like brute force method, is just boxes everywhere and one of these will work. Let's see. Last thing that's kind of a common thing that cats don't like. So another one of those things that, okay, if I see this, I'm definitely gonna right away change that, is litter box liners. Especially the plastic ones. Their claws can kind of stick in it, and they can also dislike either the texture on their paws when the claw gets stuck in it, or the sound. If it's a really like crinkly sound when they walk on it, some cats just dislike that. So liners are all of these things some cats are totally fine with. Some cats are totally fine with a covered box with a liner. But if you're having issues and you have those things, that's kind of the first things I would look at, that, okay, these have to go. And then if that fixes it, then you've got your answer. All right, so those are kind of your common litter box itself issues. Third and final step of the thing that I would look at is, oh, actually, let me give one more note. I was just thinking about a particular question. One person had submitted that their cat is going to the bathroom. I sort of talked about this, cats who go sort of right outside their litter box. So at least one person had said, my cat is kind of peeing like on the rug right in front of the box, where it's this close to it, but it's outside of the box. And that's a very common. They're either going right in front of it, right outside of it, right over it, next to it, but not, but on the floor, not in it. When you're seeing that, that is usually a sign that there is something about the litter box itself they don't like, because what they're showing you is they're going to that area. They understand this is where I go to the bathroom. They get that that's the space. They had the forethought to think of that as their bathroom, but for some reason they don't want to step in it, or they prefer something right next to it. So that can be, it smells, any of these previous things. But when you're seeing that, when you're seeing like they're going on the rug right next to the litter box, it's frequently, I don't like the litter in it. It can also be that medical issue where they have developed a negative association to the box itself. But it could be a size, it could be the substrate. They dislike the texture of the litter in the box, and they prefer that carpeting right outside of it. So frequently it's one of those issues when you're seeing that. It's like they know enough to be going, they're going so close to the bathroom, but when it's not physically in the box, that's usually a sign there's something wrong with your litter type or the cleanliness, or something is hurting them and they don't want to physically step in it. Again, maybe it's a covered one and they don't feel fully safe going in there, but it's like they're getting as close as they can. So that's definitely I would try all of those things. I would try picking up the rug, washing it really well so there's no scent, adjusting some of those things to your box, maybe giving a bigger box, changing your litter, and then after they're having success, like let's say you change something and now they're going in their box, your box is a little wider, you figured out a depth they like and they've gone in it every day for a couple weeks, then you can put the rug back if you really want to. But I would sort of do that to just kind of break the habit, solve the underlying issue. And then you can reintroduce whatever the thing is they're going on if you want to. Okay, now last but not least, kind of step 3. You have ruled out a medical issue, and now you've ruled out a box issue. It's nothing wrong with the box. They have 25 of them. You know, it's not that specifically. The third step is going to be to evaluate any household changes or stressors. I will often say the first thing to go with cats when they are stressed out, when they're upset, when something has scared or frightened or bothered them, litter box issues tend to pop up in those times. So when that's the case, you're often going to need to address whatever that underlying stressor is, figure out what has frightened them, what has bothered them, what's got them upset, and let's work on that thing because it can be this anxiety behavior is when they start going outside of their box. So the easiest thing to run through is household changes. Has anyone moved in or out? Did you get a new cat? Did you get a new dog? Is there a new baby? Did your in-laws move in? Household changes, did you move? Sometimes they are less obvious than that. Those are obviously the big ones. But sometimes I will have people say, no, nothing's different in the household. And then I'll dig a little bit deeper and kind of ask them a little bit about their lives and their work and whatever. And frequently I will find, oh, there was a household change. It wasn't, we didn't have a new baby, but my job schedule dramatically changed. Or, you know, no, we didn't move, but they started construction on the house next door and now it's noisy all the time and there's coming and going, things like that. So my point just being, think through household changes. That is a very common trigger to litter box problems. And that also it might not be the most obvious thing that comes to mind. So try to think about, when did these issues pop up? Was anything different around then? Maybe you've had your cat for a year and you've never been leaving the house and now all of a sudden you are. That's a household change. And it's a pretty big one, and they might be confused and not used to you going in this new schedule. So things like that can be stressors. Obviously, you're not going to be able to, you know, even once you've identified it, obviously you can't unhave the baby or, you know, move back. Those are not going to be realistic solutions, and that's fine, but it does help you to identify, again, kind of like I was saying at the beginning about if you have a medical issue, behavioral stuff isn't going to work. It's also good to know you don't want to be driving yourself crazy buying every type of, you know, box in the world if it's like, well, someone just moved in, because that's very likely the issue. Don't get me wrong. If your cat has a preference and they're stressed, so let's say they prefer an uncovered box, but they'll use a covered one. Now when they're stressed, they're like, I just can't handle it. My plate's already full and I can't take any more stressors. So it is still a good idea to go through those steps, even if you identify a household change that's maybe brought on this newfound accidents or accident frequency, but just something to keep in mind. So yes, if you have had stressors or household changes, that's fine. We can work with that. Sometimes it's just a matter of time. If you have moved recently, it might just take time for them to adjust to their new space, feel comfortable, kind of settle in, realize you're not going again. So sometimes it just takes a little time and patience, and that's why I like to identify them, not because you're going to be able to magically undo that household change, but it can just help you understand what's going on with them. And if they're stressed, you can realize that that might be an acute thing. It will also help you identify, is this a stressor that is not going anywhere? It's chronic, and therefore we really need to do something to help my cat feel okay with this? Or is it like a move where it's a one-time big change, but every day they're hopefully going to feel a little more comfortable? If it's a move, you know, hopefully waiting it out, giving them lots of comfort, giving them lots of enrichment, doing things that kind of lower your cat's stress overall, giving them play, giving them attention if they like that, help, and then just, making sure they have sort of safe, secure spaces, maybe some things with similar smells that smell like them or from the old house. All of those things can help them with that adjustment, and get back to litter box success quickly. A move can also mess with their be an access issue where they might not know where to find the new box. So sometimes what you can do is it's like a hard reset. I recommend this with a move. Or sometimes even just a big household change where all of a sudden they're having a lot of accidents. You can put your cat in a smaller space of the house. So instead of total free reign of the house, put them in maybe 1 or 2 rooms with some baby gates or doors closed, and somewhere where they obviously have access to their litter box. If it's right there, they know exactly where to find it. They feel safe. They feel secure. You don't have any of these access issues where they got too far, they got lost, they got scared, they got overwhelmed. They're kind of in this smaller space that feels secure. That can reset them back on success by kind of getting them back in the habit. So it's like if you're just in this one smaller space of the house, it feels safe, it feels quiet, it feels familiar, your box is right there. That can get them successfully going in their box for, 5 days in a row. And now you add in, take the door away, open the baby gate, or add in another room, but they're now have reset the habit of using the box. So that's sort of one approach you can take. And another thing is just, like I said, you want to adjust that underlying stressor. If you have cats, a multi-cat household, and there's any sort of tension there, they're fighting, they're, having trouble sharing, they're stressing each other out, one is pestering another one or stealing his food or water, that is a really common cause of litter box issues. So you want to make sure that one cat is not blocking the box from another one. You want to make sure one cat is not pestering or making your cat feel trapped or ambushed in their box. You want to make sure that each cat has their own space they can retreat to, even if it's just once in a while. So even if it's like there's, a gate here and a gate here, and this is one cat spot and that one's the other cat spot, and they can just periodically rest, get some time away from each other, and your box is there. Sometimes they just need a little peace and quiet and privacy to kind of recuperate and feel comfortable enough to go. And then I also recommend doing sort of some more behavioral work about helping your cats get along with each other, or helping your cat and dog get along with each other so that your cat is not scared and stressed. And those things will sort of help if the litter box issue is sometimes just the symptom of this bigger problem. So that's just the way that your cat is expressing that they're upset and stressed out, and helping the issue, that underlying issue, will sort of solve it. Global things, regardless of what the stressor is, all forms of enrichment can lower your cat's stress. So like even if something is stressing them out, like a new family member that you can't change, even if you can't change that thing, you can add some things in their life that bring their stress down. So that's always an option. Things like food puzzles, food toys, which are basically like you can get like a little ball that you can put a treat in or their regular food in, and they roll it around. That simulates the process of like hunting for their food and then getting to eat it. So that's very fun and stimulating to them, a mental and physical exercise. There's all kinds that you can look up, interactive cat toys or cat food puzzles, and there's tons of stuff where they have to kind of move things around, use their nose or their paws to get little treats, or you can even do it their regular kibble. That is a huge way to add a lot of fun to their lives. And when they're so busy having fun doing that, it brings down their stress. Just like when we do things that we love, if you're stressed out, maybe you're stressed out by work, you can't change that your job is stressful, but having a lovely bubble bath and watching your favorite TV show, those things still make you feel better. So even if you can't remove the thing that stresses your cat out, if you can add in things they like, you might kind of give them more of a boost to their coping. So think about things like that. They also love having a place to hide, especially if something is stressing them out and scaring them. Having their own quiet, safe space, even if it's as simple as a towel, hung from something that they can go behind, a box they can go in, under a desk, anywhere that they feel like they can hide can really lower their stress because they feel they can get away from the thing that frightens them, gives them more of a sense of control, and again, can give them their own little like peace and quiet area. So adding enrichment. Some other things for enrichment are interactive play, not just food puzzles, but you actually playing with them. They often, of course, love that attention and love you actively engaging with them with a toy. So a wand toy, a feather toy, something you're throwing or moving where it's interactive is going to be very exciting to them. That's a lot of fun, so that can help. And then last but not least, I'd mention vertical space. Cats love to climb. Sometimes you can have something like a cat tree, and then that's going to give them several of these things at once. It's something they can kind of play with. It's something that's somewhere they can hide, and they can climb it and get vertical space all in one. So I love a cat tree because it's all of these things at once. And you just might not think of it as something that would help a litter box issue. But like I said, things that lower our stress aren't always related to the thing that's stressing us out. Sometimes you just need a little help, a little relaxation technique. So giving your cat space to hide, space to climb, even just installing a shelf so that they can get on. Something that gives them vertical space will help them feel more safe, more secure, and more likely to use their litter box. Next, I think a common stressor, let's say one of these stressors or household changes is your cat is not getting along with your dog. I have gotten a lot of questions about pets getting along or not getting along well in the house, dogs and dogs, dogs and cats, cats and cats. So I think I'll do a whole separate one on that. And to start there, on my next video, I'm going to talk about how to introduce dogs and cats successfully, kind of the best way if you're adding a new one to your home, and then how to troubleshoot. Let's say they didn't get off on the right foot and now your cat is peeing everywhere. The underlying issue there is going to be the cat and dog not getting along or stressing each other out. So I'm going to talk about all kinds of techniques to help them both sort of communicate, cooperate better, and feel more comfortable around each other. The very last thing I'll say about litter boxes for now is easy because it's just something not to do. So one thing that can create litter box problems, this is actually true of dogs and potty training as well, but you definitely want to avoid ever punishing your cat or your dog for having an accident, because they will associate the punishment with going to the bathroom. We think you're saying don't go to the bathroom there, but they obviously didn't realize the difference in location preference, or else they would have gone where you wanted them to. So they're not necessarily thinking about the location. The obvious association to them is I just went to the bathroom, or I just, peed here, and then I got in trouble. I got yelled at, or someone made a scary sound, or, whatever. So if they ended up getting punished, they associate being afraid to go to the bathroom in front of you, afraid to go to the bathroom when you're nearby, afraid to go to the bathroom where they think you might find it. So I frequently, with both dogs and cats, if they are sneaking off and going to the bathroom somewhere where you do not find it right away, that can result from punishing accidents, where they think they might not go in the super obvious litter box where you're right there. They're going to sneak away and go off in some room you don't use and go behind a couch somewhere to where you don't find it until much later. So that is definitely something you want to avoid. Hello, I see a comment. Hi, Cindy. Yes, it is absolutely recorded. So as soon as I hit end here in a second, that should publish the full video, and it'll publish it in a recorded way that you should be able to rewind, fast forward, and move it all around. It might even let you do that now. Basically, if you just scroll your mouse onto where the video is, you should see at the bottom like a little bar pop up, and you should be able to move the cursor in order to rewind or start from the beginning. So yes, sorry, I should have clarified. The question was, is this recorded, and if so, where can I find it? So yes, this one is recorded, and so is every Ask the Trainer we've done. So we've done a bunch now. And you can, I will post like a link to all of the previous ones, and we periodically put those up. So, yes, they're all recorded so that you can come back and troubleshoot and read over it, listen to it anytime you like and come back to it. Yeah, I think that covers litter box issues. Like I said, next up, for the next Ask Your Trainer, I'm going to cover cats and dogs, helping them to get along, introducing them, or troubleshooting if they're not getting along well. You can do some stuff to train and help the cat. You can do some stuff to train and help the dog. So we'll talk about all of that next time. And hope this helps. Let me know. You can always leave comments, and let me know if you have questions, things to clarify, other issues. We also have a form on the website for our Ask a Trainer where you can submit a question for any type of video we could cover next time. So thank you all so much. Thank you for all the questions. I will try to get to everyone's at some point. I hope that covers a lot because we have gotten lots of litter box ones. And take care. Bye, everybody.